Okay, we've done that page.
No,
we haven't.
Darren Bridgman.
Oh yeah, okay. Shall I start? Darren Bridgman, this is a question for Phil. I'm really interested in his bluesy guitar style. Who are his main influences on that?
Oh, okay. Guitar generally, so like Lord Iommi, obviously, Jimmy Page as well. They sort of got me into rock guitar, and then Peter Green for the blues, Kossoff from Free as well.
There were actually times during the album recording when we were like, we need to make it sound more Peter Green.
Yeah.
It needs to be more Peter Green.
Greener, please.
Greener.
All right. Sort of early Eric Clapton as well. So,
Not now.
Not now, no. Blues Breakers stuff, or maybe a bit of Cream.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Cream. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Of course.
So yeah, that's that.
Right.
All right, David Jupp.
That's David from Mountains.
Mountains. Love that band.
Amazing band. Check
in
out their EP. It's awesome. Or is it an album? It's an album.
Album.
Dust and the Glare.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's asking, in a genre that suffers from derivative sounds and themes, how did you make such a fresh and authentic record? Well, first of all, thank you for calling it a fresh and authentic record.
Yeah, cheers.
I think it comes from where your priorities lie when you're writing stuff. If your main thing is expression of the idea, then it's quite easy not to fall into the tropes of the genre. Whereas I think a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, kind of get lost in, we're a stoner band, so it needs to sound stoner. Whereas I think, especially with this album, it was very much, we've got this idea, how do we make the idea work, and then make it sound mom.
Yeah. Well, do you remember when I first came to you with the idea and my theme? Do you remember what I said?
Oh, yes, I wanted to make it sound like we're in a forest.
And they were like, what? And they're like, so you write some songs? And I'm like, no. But I think it does relate to it. It's like, for me, never wanted to repeat myself. I didn't want to just write another These Paths We Tread. I knew that we now had you on board, and dynamically already the band was changing, and so I'm like, well, maybe we can go in some different places, all this kind of stuff. And then when it actually came to sort of like starting to piece the album together, I also decided that I was going to write about a lot more personal things than I had. The first one was all about historical disasters, then it was kind of like mythos in the second album. But
good beer, that.
Oh, sorry,
Mythos.
first album.
Sorry.
And then you thinking of beer, weren't you?
Mythos. Anyway,
This afternoon.
Anyway, but then with the new one, it was like I was going to write about much more personal things, and I had all these themes and ideas in mind, and it just, as the album grew, we took more chances, and then when you take chances and they work, you take more chances, and then you start to make. Then the creative process just like snowballs, and then everything about it, like from like when we talked about the title, The Ties That Bind, and then we wanted all the songs to bind together effectively, and like kind of that thing where I sat in the middle of a forest with a Zoom recorder and basically just sat there and recorded the sound of a forest, and then that is, if you listen to the album, that's a little bit behind all of the tracks. And in fact, on the first side it's like the forest at night, and the second side it's like, this is on the vinyl obviously, it's a forest during the morning. So like, and all those things, when you start to dig that deep into something, and I guess throw away worrying about what anybody else is doing in the scene, and you're just making a record that you want to make, that we want to make as a band, then, and you completely invest in that, like you almost write, you're starting to do it in a bubble, aren't you? And I think that is important to do, because there is loads of people out there releasing loads of different great records that sound nothing like this, and it's like, so you just got to do what you got to do. And I think you start to get to a point where there's sort of almost a critical mass of it, where you're like, enough of the ideas are working, that we're on the right track here, and then it's about having faith, which is one of the hardest things to do, that all those crazy or seemingly crazy chances that you took will pay off, and that people will understand. And thankfully, the vast majority of people have got the album. There's been a couple of angry metal guys that haven't, but generally speaking, most people have got it. So, sold.
Real soul.
Very smooth. Where are we? That one. Jacob Alistair McCrone. What was the song that was easiest for you to write, that came out the most fully formed, before revisions and stuff? They're all fully formed now, on an album and everything. So
nice punctuation. That was good.
So what was the song that was easiest for you to write and came out most fully formed?
I think for me, because it started off with drums, Death of All. Because like with a lot of the other songs, it was you guys had an idea on guitar, and I was coming up with a drum part to that thing that you'd already.
Do you remember you went away?
Yeah, only I went away for a weekend, came back. Oh, we got a song.
Yeah, Bones just goes.
All right then.
Like, Raj, play the drums, and I was like, what?
It literally was like that, wasn't it? I was like, do what you do, man, and I'll play along. But that's the thing, it's like, essentially, that's the new thing that's happening dynamically in the band, is that because you have a funk background, and because years ago I did too, but I sort of shelved it because that wasn't the kind of drummer that Westy was. But now it can come back in and mean you can jam more, and get in the pocket more. And that was totally what that was about. It was about writing a real groovy song. And in some ways, I think I always had in the back of my mind, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Soda Walk, it's a great song, but I always felt like it always got 80% there of the idea I had in my head of how much of a groove song it was going to be. And then I feel like that idea had been realised with Death of All. It's like, it's what I always wanted Soda Walk to be, in a weird kind of way. But it's I would say that one came together pretty quick. Even the different time signature bit, which is probably the only thing. I mean, do you remember we had a version of this song from years back?
It's the only thing we kept from it.
The only thing we kept was the bit that was in 7/8.
I remember you guys showed me that when I first joined the band. So, before we even thought about writing the album. So.
It was just that little bit of it, and everything else is all you. Fucking funky.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. Rob Lang, Dr. Rob Lang. What's the hardest song to perform? Can you perform a track from the Ties That Bind a cappella? Okay. By the way, there's loads of other Rob Lang questions we'll get to later on. The hardest song to perform. What's the hardest song to perform from Ties That Bind?
I find that it's Persona Non Grata. Just because of the intensity of the song, it's pretty full on for all of it. There's like one bit where it goes a bit quieter, but most of it is literally just me beating the crap out of drums. And just because of where we put it in the set as well, it's normally towards the end, and I'm really tired.
rookie mistake.
But vocally, it's a stranger because of the going from screaming your head off to singing a bass note. Backing you up and stuff. It's that I find really hard to pitch. The change.
I'd say Persona as well. Merely for the end. The end. That chorus.
I mean, we did that to ourselves. We wrote that really complicated, and we were really pleased with ourselves. We wrote it.
It was really good. It's really hard, but it's really good.
And it's like one of those things where you're sitting down in a living room writing it, and then up on the stage playing. Because there's these two melodic parts, I don't know if anybody notices, on the out and at the end of Persona Non Grata that go in and out of each other, and they keep
minor in octaves as well, all over the place.
But as you're ascending, I'm descending, and all this, and it's quite complex stuff. It just sounds like riffs, man. But it is kind of one of those things where I remember the first time we played it through, and we got to the end of it and didn't make a mistake. We were like, yes, because we were really impressed. For me, I think the hardest song to perform live is easily A Stranger, just because it has such a breadth of different things going on within it, both vocally and in terms of what I'm playing as well. And it's also one of those songs that, because it is difficult, when we nail it, I'm like, oh yes, mate. Because it's a song that it highlights all the new places we're going to, and there's a reason we sound check it, isn't it? It's because it gives people a little bit of everything that we do, and it's a really fully formed song. And also for me personally as well, the lyrics are very personal.
Yeah.
And so when I actually sing it, I have to go to a place as well. And so by the time I get to the end of all of that, it's been difficult to do, but if the payoff's there, then it's the best feeling ever.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Definitely. Cool.
Are we going to sing a song a cappella then, or?
Well,
maybe later, yeah.
So, I mean,
moving on.
We did Deepest Roots, didn't we? But that had a bit of guitar on it. I couldn't hear the guitar. Right.
Break.
No, we've got one more.
Okay.
Swamp Coffin. Oh, this is the one about Hard Rock Hell. So when we played Hard Rock Hell, okay, it was about a meal I had afterwards. It's not really about the album. Where did you get the Chinese food the night before you played Doom vs Stoner last year that gave you the shits? Well, actually, the restaurant itself is just opposite the O2. But me and my girlfriend, we were really hungry, and we went in to try and find some vegan Chinese food. And I don't think they quite understood what vegan was. Anyway, we got this food and we were starving, and so we were eating it. And other than the fact that it was the spiciest thing ever, don't look at me like that. I know what you're going to say. White man spicy. It, like, so spicy it made me cry. But we were also like shoveling it in, and then I realised there was loads of egg in it as well, and it was just like, too late now. So I think a combination of the spice and the egg, like the next day, probably gave me the shits. There you go, nice thing to end on there.